In this video, we're going to be looking at and also testing to see if it will work a JVC GR-DVM90 digital video camera. And yes, this is a MIniDV format camcorder. Now this is one of my personal favorite models because I had this model originally when it was new back in 2001 when I was still in the service. And this would be the very model camcorder that I would actually take on leave and stuff like that when we go to different places when we had a long, 3-4 day off period and stuff like that. And this would be the camcorder that actually recorded a lot of mine and other people's shenanigans and so forth. And the reason why I picked this particular camera is obviously because it's small size, its unique look, and everything else. But the thing that's surprising, because honestly, I didn't think it was going to be that great of a camera back there. It turned out to be an excellent camera. This thing shot very good footage for its size and stuff. And that's because it had a 1/4-inch sensor that had 680K effective pixel resolution on it. So the video quality of this camcorder is actually outstanding, especially considering its size. And later models of this and stuff, and even some, during that time and stuff, were not as good as this one. Most of them, you were lucky to get half the effective pixel ratio. They used the 1/6-inch sensor and stuff, and they didn't have very good low light performance. But this one here was actually pretty good for its size for being a compact camcorder. Now, of course, it's not JVC's best MIniDV camcorder, or even considered the best MIniDV camcorders, because that would go to the bigger, of course, shoulder cams like the VX series and stuff like that. But either way it goes, at least as far as this category, subcompact, this is actually like the Sony PC series, which the Sony called theirs PC, standing for pocket camcorder essentially and stuff. And that's what's made for. It's small enough where this could actually fit in your pocket essentially and stuff. But for its size and for the category here, it's actually one of the best. And yes, it did copy kind of a lot of the Sony PC series at the time, even down to the buttons and stuff. You look at it there, the Sony PC 100s or the 10s and stuff like that had the same kind of button layout. Of course, the Sony had a lot more on there. And you can see it put the mic on the top and stuff. The only difference is obviously Sony is on the Sonys they have the code shoe on the top here and the mic in the front and stuff, where this has the transport controls. But other than that, it looks kind of very similar. And then there you go. There's for your buttons to power on and off the camera or go to the tape transport functions and stuff. This is for your auto manual, adjustments for the camera, and also you have to put it in the manual mode to get to the settings of the actual camera and stuff like that if you want to set up the clock and so forth. On these here, on the later ones, they did have an AV out. They also had a Firewire out, where the very first version of the MIniDV camcorders JVC came out with didn't have any of that, and you had to use a dock, and even the dock didn't have a Firewire port. Didn't have no Firewire port at all, even though it was a MIniDV camcorder. Kind of unbelievable, actually. And the dock was big and stuff in black. This one here does have a dock too as well. As you can see, it does have the audio video out, your S-video connection, and then the camera sits on top of there and docks onto that connector, and you screw that to the tripod mount underneath the camera. And then if you want to put this on a tripod mount, has one under there. And then on the other side, there's for your mic input and so forth, and for your edit controls and stuff like that will go on the side and stuff. So yes, this did have a dock too, but at least they thought about putting the AV out and also an actual Firewire port so you could hook up to your computer, transfer your footage 1-to-1 instead of going, digital to analog and then back to digital again. You can go Firewire and just do a 1-to-1 transfer essentially. Now, one thing that plagues all these pocket camcorders essentially is when you put your hand through this grip right here, your fingers is naturally going to want to hit that mic, and obviously it cause microphonics and stuff as you're constantly tapping that mic. You're supposed to hold it like this though, where the buttons and the controls are and stuff, and then you got your rear controls and stuff. but some people had a tendency of going too far and, of course, hitting that mic and stuff as they're recording and stuff. But let's go ahead and turn this on. I do expect this will work because this was one of JVC's most reliable MIniDV transport. And in all honesty, they should have kept making their MIniDV camcorders, their later models, with this transport, because the later models were junk. I mean, when they were junk, pretty much almost every single one of those are broken because the supply and take-up reels actually tend to crack the plastic because they use a metal disc in there. And as the plastic and metal shrinks or expands at a different rate, it tends to crack that nylon, and then over time you'll hear clicking, and then eventually clicking, the gears were completely split, rendering the transport useless. On this model here, didn't have that problem. Even on some of the earlier ones, didn't have that problem at all. And I expect this one probably will likely work. Now, it does got a tape in it, so we'll go ahead and first go ahead and show you that the camera side of it works as far as the CCD goes. And you can see there, it works as expected. Of course, you can zoom there. It focuses as it's supposed to. So the CCD works. The other thing too is to use the viewfinder on these JVC. It's different. You pull this out and this turns it on. And that also turns off the LCD. You can see there. It's on. Of course, it's not in focus and that's dirty. And you can see there, if I pull that out, the LCD is off. But if I go and push this in, there you go. The Sony ones, you close the display and then the viewfinder comes on and so forth. Where this one here, you can pull out, turns on the viewfinder and turns off the LCD. If you want to pull it in, then it turns it on. And of course, it does the rotate as well and stuff like that. So if you do that, it rotates the picture over and so forth. Honestly, I wish this should have been one of their first models they came out with. Okay, so now we'll go over to the actual tape transport and we'll see if it works. And then of course it got to separate for the memory, which it does take a multimedia card on this side right here, and I'll show you that real quick. And you can see right there, and this is what I came with the camcorder originally. And yeah, it says JVC right there. Okay. And there, one of those battery connections is because it seems to turn off and on. Or is that all the way? Hold on. Yeah, that button might be dodgy. Okay, and then let's go and put play. And yeah, as expected, it works. Someone did a very rough edit on this. Yeah, this is the original tape that was actually still in the camcorder when I purchased it. And I got this one off eBay, but it was Goodwill, so it was one of the Goodwills that actually sold it. Of course, it was sold as is, untested. But yep, it works as I expected it would. Let's go and go fast again. Hear how quiet that transport is. No clicking. And I ain't even clean it or nothing. It just works. There you go. And they even says, shows you the date code and everything. I mean, pretty good camcorder. And then we'll go fast forward. Yeah, and that transport sounds like it did when it was new. At least on the one I had, it sounds exactly the same. The thing I like about it is when it goes towards the beginning, how it sounds. Just listen to this. And I'll let it grind all the way to the beginning and how it slows down. Yeah, nice and smooth. Still works the way it would have my original one when it was new. Yep, and there you go. And to lower the volume, you use the same as the zoom lever, and that for lowering the volume. And it gets pretty loud too. Yeah, you can hear it got excellent sound quality too. It's another reason why I like this, because a lot of the speakers that came with a lot of camcorders and stuff weren't as loud. And then that's the fast forward. And you can hear no clicking, no nothing, unlike the later JVCs, which pretty much all have what I call the click of death, or the transport just stops working completely. This one here, being a lot older, works perfect. They should have stuck with this transport. Yep, and there you go. Well, you can see there, let's just see if there's anything on that card there. Okay. And then to go forward there, you just use the same tape transport. Yep, and that's what it does for the digital still, of course. So now we'll go back up there and I'll show you some of the menus. Okay. We'll go into the tape transport first. Let's hope that the jog reel didn't become sticky. Nope, it's perfectly fine. Like I said, this camcorder, you can see there is no, you know, Sony ones where they use the jog reel tends to get kind of, you know, dodgy after time. This one works perfect. This was when actually JVC knew how to make a camcorder, unlike their later ones, which were total junk. And then to go to the menu, if I remember correctly, I think you had to go in manual mode. And then once you go to manual mode, yep, that's it. And then you could get to, of course, not only your manual control, but you could get into the actual main menu to set the actual clock, date, you know, and various functions of the camcorder there. You can see there. For your flash adjust, and yes, this had a flash on it. Also for your zoom, record mode, sound, all that. And then, of course, your white balance and everything else, and for your shutter speeds. But there you go. You can kind of see there somewhat how the camera functions. And then here, off is the middle. And that turns off the camera. And then I'll go and give you a quick overview of behind the camera. Real good shot there. And then you can see where the multimedia right there. You can see the function for video and so forth. You can see for the modes for the VTR and the camera. And you can see down there. And yeah, the straps handle itself, unlike the Sony's, is actually still good. Alright, this I didn't like. I hated that they used this. They should have put, and I don't get why they didn't put just a jack in the back or something like that. But you do got to use this awkward weird. And let me see if I can just pull this out. Here, hold on, I don't want to. There you go. And it uses this weird adapter there that connects for your battery compartment right in there to those contacts. And yes, I did get a battery, but of course the battery's going to be long shot, as you can see. I wouldn't expect this to ever work. I don't even know if you can get a new battery. I likely doubt it, but there you go. That's what the original battery did, and I did get the dock and all that. The only thing I didn't get, shockingly, ironically, is just the charger itself, which I'll find one. But other than that, I got everything else. I got the cables, I got the dock, I got the remote, everything. And you can see there's the business end. There's your CCD, there's your flash assembly, and then there's for the remote sensor. And then here's for your mics and your transport control and so forth. But there you go. And then I'll go ahead and be right back, and I'll show you what inside the transport looks like. So I figure I'll go and show you what it looks like when as it ejects and so forth, to see if we can get a good view of it. Try as best as you get. Here you can see inside the transport, there's the head drum, there's your pinch roll, and you can see the nylon washer isn't cracked or falling out. And you can see your take up and supply reel right there. Very nice transport. Like I said, these transport rarely give me any problems at all whatsoever. I haven't really seen one that's actually broken. And then here you go. We'll go and push it down. And I'll show you when it goes into the loaded position right there. And there you go, pretty much. So, one thing to note though, if you are planning on buying one of these to use as a camcorder, this probably wouldn't be the best choice. Just because these packs, you're not going to find them, you know what I mean? That's the problem. And the only way to get this working as a camcorder is to actually go ahead and repair this pack, which I'm probably likely going to do with this one. Because one, like I said, models I originally owned back in 2001. And also, two, I would like to shoot some footage outside with this. Then I can do a direct upload and stuff. You can see what the quality of the footage would look like from this camcorder and stuff. But at first, I would have to address this pack. It's easier said than done because it's not as easy as just splitting this open, because a lot of times when you try to split these packs open, you tend to destroy them trying to get them open, so because they use some very strong adhesive to glue these together. Sometimes you do get lucky though, where if you get the corners, and then you can go ahead and start, and then you can separate the glue on the seams right here, and then maybe be able to get it open without too much damage. But it'll be nice to get this thing working again. Of course, I would have to find lithium polymer packs that will fit into this case, and you can see there's pretty slim. And you can see the original one there, obviously. Or shot, I wouldn't even attempt to try to charge that anyway, because that's one thing you want to note when you're dealing with these Lion packs and stuff like that. If they ever discharge below 1 volt, don't even attempt to try to charge it. Actually, anything lower than 2 volts, you shouldn't, because they could have a tendency of shorting out a cell internally and stuff like that and catch fire and stuff. So the only other option really would be to rebuild this pack fully, and that's going to be tricky considering the size of this. So I'd have to find, of course, going to use 2 cells because it's 7.2 volts, so there's going to be 2 cells in this. I have to find ones that will fit into this actual slim chassis here. And maybe I can get this thing working enough to go and shoot some footage outside with it, and then do, of course, using firewall 1-to-1 transfer of it, so you can see what the quality of the video that would come from this camcorder.